الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا وعظيمنا وحبيب قلوبنا وشفيع نفوسنا أبي القاسم محمد طب القلوب ودوائها ونور الأبصار وضيائها وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الصادقين. الحمد لله الذي جعلنا من المتمسكين بولاية سيدي ومولاي علي بن أبي طالب. اللهم صل. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. أما بعد، يقول الله في كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم: وما كان استغفار إبراهيم لأبيه إلا عن موعدة وعدها إياه فلما تبين له أنه عدو لله تبرأ منه إن إبراهيم لأواه حليم. The first of our loud salawat in honor of Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. The second in honor of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib. The third with your loudest voices in honor of Imam Sahib al-Asr wal-Zaman. Allahumma salli. Respected scholars, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. Tabarra is one of the most controversial subjects in the religion of Islam, and a subject that requires a critical dissection. For it is a subject that unfortunately has caused much disunity between many Muslim communities in the world today. That there are many groups that come forward today and pronounce the idea that their method of tabarra is the correct one. And unfortunately, because of this, we find that the splits continue to occur in our communities over the definition of the word tabarra. Therefore, the analysis of tabarra is an important analysis, for it is both historical as well as contemporary. Historical in the sense that it allows us to understand where our affiliations lie in some of the most important parts of Islamic history. For historically, when you examine certain leaders and examine their principles, you ask yourself the question as whether you should associate or not with those leaders. At the same time, on a contemporary level, many of our youth continue to ask that what is the valid form of tabarra in the school of Ahl al-Bayt, and what is invalid, in the sense that they see that there are many different types and many different forms of tabarra within the community. And that's why there are too many misconceptions related to the topic of tabarra, where many people have been given an idea as to what constitutes tabarra, yet the reality is that that definition which they've been given is a false one. And that there is a need, therefore, in tonight's lecture to examine the definition of tabarra, to examine where tabarra is within the Quran and where it is within the world of the hadith, and to examine which types of tabarra are valid and which types of tabarra are invalid, and therefore allow us to understand the way Al-Muhammad viewed tabarra and how tabarra should be applied into our lives today. As we know, tabarra is one of the roots of the religion of Islam. The religion of Islam is divided into two. You have the pillars of the religion and you have the roots of the religion. The pillars of the religion are known as the usul, and the roots of the religion are known as the furu'. When you look at the pillars, they are known in the English language as the beliefs, whereas the furu' are known in the English language as the practice of those beliefs. When you look at the pillars, you find that the pillars are five: Tawheed, Al-Adala, Al-Nubuwwa, Al-Imama, Wal-Ma'ad, the belief in Yawm Al-Qiyamah. And when you look at the furu', you find that the furu' are 10: Al-Salah, Al-Sawm, Al-Hajj, Al-Zakat, Al-Khums, Al-Jihad, Al-Amr bil-Ma'ruf, Al-Nahi an al-Munkar, Al-Tawalla, Al-Tabarra. Therefore, in examining each of these, we find that each one of them has a basis within the Quran. That every single one of the furu' has a basis with one of the verses in the Quran. For example, the first of the furu' known as Salah has a basis within the Quran. For example, the verse in the Quran which comes forward and says, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ الَّذِينَ هُمْ فِي صَلَاتِهِمْ خَاشِعُونَ. Likewise, Sawm has a basis in the Quran. يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا كُتِبَ عَلَيْكُمُ الصِّيَامُ كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون. Likewise, for example, we find Amr bil Ma'ruf والنهي عن المنكر has a base in the Quran. When Luqman speaks to his son, he says to him, يا بني أقم الصلاة وأمر بالمعروف وانهى عن المنكر. With all of these, we find that their place is within the Quran. And therefore, the first question we ask ourselves in this analysis is, where is Tabarra mentioned in the Quran? The first point to understand is that the root word of the word Tabarra is bara'a. And that the meaning of the word Tabarra in the English language is dissociation. To dissociate yourself from a particular person or from a particular group of people. The consonantal root is the word bara'a. And therefore you find that the only surah in the Quran which does not begin with Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim is called Surah al-Bara'a, because Surah 9 of the Quran has two different meanings. The first is normally known as Surah al-Tawbah, and the second is normally known as Surah al-Bara'a. The question arises, why would Allah call this surah, which does not begin with Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, al-Bara'a? Because when you look at the first verse of the surah, it begins with the word Bara'a. Bara'atun min Allah wa rasulahu alladhina ahadtum min al-mushrikeen. Which dissociation does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speak about at the beginning of this verse? The dissociation which is referred to refers to the biography of our Holy Prophet. As you know, our Holy Prophet spent 13 years in Mecca and 10 years in Medina. In his time while in Medina, he tried on many occasions to try and make peace treaties with the people around him. For example, when he was in Medina, he tried to make the constitution of Medina in order that the Muslims and the Christians and the Jews were able to live in peace with each other. Then later on, he made the treaty of Hudaybiyah, Sulh al-Hudaybiyah, in order that the Muslim and the Quraysh were able to live with each other in peace. Later on, he continued to make treaties. And that the aim of these treaties was the idea that you may not be my brothers in faith, but you are my equals in humanity. And the idea that you may not have agreed to me that I am a prophet of God, but at least accept that we are brothers living in the same community, and therefore we should try and associate with each other as much as we can, meet each other as much as we can, live with each other in the best way as possible. What happened was that every time Rasulullah would make a covenant, the Quraysh would break it. Every single time he'd make an agreement with them that we'll live together with you in peace, you would find that they would continue to break this covenant. At times, they would go behind his back and even kill some of his companions. Having seen every time they would kill some of his companions, he would continuously return and make another treaty. And therefore, those who say that Muhammad spread his religion by the sword are wrong. For which man would continue to make treaties with a group of people who continue to kill his own people? It reached a stage in the 9th year of Hijrah where every time he would make a treaty, they would break it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decided to reveal Surah 9 of the Quran. And he decided to name the surah Surah al-Bara'a. Remember, Bara'a is the consonantal root of the word Tabarra. He decided to name it Bara'a. Why? He wanted his prophet to dissociate completely from the Quraysh now. Meaning what? Meaning that the Quraysh had reached the level where they were the open enemies of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Openly they would transgress. Openly they would kill the servants of God. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed the surah but with no Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Why? Because Allah did not want His mercy showered on these people. And the idea that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala normally when He begins the surah in the name of Allah, the most kind, the most merciful, what it means is that the following lines are sent as a mercy to mankind, but not to these people.